All right. Mic check. Good. So I'm Max Ceron. Max Ceron, CWB Association Welding Podcast. Podcast. Today we have a really cool guest. Welding Podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron and I'm with you guys as always. And today we have a special guest, Kendal Keating. He's going to be telling us about his crazy ride. And if you guys have been following this guy on Instagram, he's got some neat stuff going on. So I'm happy to see Kendal. And I saw you last night at the event with Kevin, man. Kendal, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on, Max. No, I appreciate it. Yeah. I signed in there last night. Had got some information from Kevin. That was great. You know, lots of prizes going around at the end too, which is it's an amazing thing, right? It gets a little bit more people involved, and I love the what the welding community is doing right now on Instagram. It's amazing.
Well, it's funny. I got my spies all over the place. So I posted a picture of the meeting last night on Instagram. Then Courtney, who we were just talking about, saw the picture on Instagram with your name on the side. And then she was like, hey, you know Kendal. I just talked to him. And I was like, oh, my God, what a small world. Like, this is a welding community. It's nuts.
That's the thing, right? Like I said, yeah, Courtney works for Skills Canada, based in New Brunswick, and like I said, I'm from New Brunswick originally, so we had met up and did a little bit of work from a couple weeks ago, and then like I said, I'd already been kind of listening to your podcast. So then when I seen you in there last night as well, I was like, oh, like I said, it all comes back full circle, right? So it's great.
All right, Kendal. So let's talk about where you're from. You're from New Brunswick, big town, small town. What's your history there?
So born and raised Miramichi, New Brunswick. Population says 19,000 on the sign, but you know, maybe half those people work away, kind of thing. So it depends what day it is, how many people are in that town. I grew up on the outskirts, about 20 minutes outside of town on a farm. We have about 180 acres there, and you know, kind of grew up doing the farm life, that kind of stuff. So it was you know, close enough that if I wanted to be anywhere in the city, I could be there. Well, city with brackets, I could be there in 20 minutes, but I'm also far enough outside of it that you know, you don't see much traffic. There's not no hustle and bustle. It's just a pretty quiet spot.
Yeah, what did you guys farm?
So it was just a beef farm, smaller hobby farm. My grandfather was retired pretty young, so basically he had always thought about getting a farm when he retired, and I'm getting one. And you know, a couple of cows and a horse or two kind of turned into bigger and bigger over the years, and we ended up with a lot more than that. But like I said, just more of the land. Like we have a lot of crops going on it, as well as like we have kind of a camp back there. We have rabbits, we have horses, we have turkeys, chickens, all that kind of stuff, right? So like
Man, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great. You don't really realize when you're growing up like that. You think it's pretty normal, and then you start to move around. You're like, oh, I miss it, right? So it was a great childhood for sure.
Well, I grew up in a city. Like, I'm a city kid through and through, and you don't even know what you're missing. Like, I don't think I was on a quad till I was in my 20s. Like, I didn't even know what the hell. Like, I mean, where would I ride one in town? You know, unless I'm doing like a rap video or something. Like, you know.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, going down the main streets.
So you're growing up in small town New Brunswick. You know, what was the allure? You know, your parents are farming, or no? Your grandpa had the farm. So what did your parents do?
Yeah, so my father by trade, he's a geologist. So he was a geologist took the university, did all that kind of fun stuff, and got out of it. He immediately started a landscaping company. And while he was doing he also owned a tire shop around the city, which he ended up selling later on and went full time with the landscaping. My uncle, so like I live on this farmstead. So basically there's my house, my next door neighbors, my grandparents, across the road is my uncle, and behind me is my uncle. So like it's a huge family thing going on, right? And my uncle owns a larger construction company as well. So there's a garage just, you know, 500 meters down the road from us, and that's where everybody kind of hung out. That was all our excavators, all the big stuff, the welding shop, all that kind of stuff, right? So I didn't really have much interest in the welding or, you know, the machinery and stuff when I was younger, but I was always there. And like I said, just you know, growing up, you know, I was probably 6 or 7 years old the first time I operated a mini excavator. So it's just, you know, something that, like I said, you think normal at the time, and you grow up and realize, oh, that wasn't that normal kind of thing, right? So, yeah. And then my mom, she never did the secondary. There's me, and then I have 2 brothers, an older and a younger. So she had her hands full with us, and she was the stay-at-home mom kind of thing. So she, did that. And like I said, Dad was into the landscaping. He owns the machinery as well. So, you know, backhoes, all that kind of stuff. So
So
Always, always.
you're the forgotten middle child.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. That was the middle child syndrome, right? So.
Wait a second. Wait a second. So farm, all the family lives on the farm,
Mhm.
construction company, landscaping company, beef farm. Are you sure you guys aren't mafia? This sounds like the Keating mafia, man. I don't know.
No, no, just the old Keating clan there. Everyone's just trying to trying to make their way in life, right? Trying to don't really like having bosses, so they all try and do their own thing.
Awesome. So, you went to high school. Was there was the high school close to you? Do you have to bus to high school, or was it a pretty big high school? Like what kind of high school is it like?
Yeah, so I land basically in the jurisdiction that I could go to a high school either on about 25 minutes either way from me. 25 minutes into town, you'd have a bigger one, 1,200 students, 1,400 students type thing. But I went the other way. I went into the country farther. So my graduating class had 30 people in it. It was grade kindergarten to sixth in one school, and then grade 7 to grade 12 in the next school.
Oh,
They're
wow.
they share a soccer field, like they're kind of right next to each other, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Took a bus into school. Like I said, it's 25-minute drive in a car, an hour and a half on a bus because all the kids that get dropped off, all that kind of fun stuff. But no, it's just a very small town, little hockey rink right next to it. So, at lunchtime and everything, we'd be going right in the ice and all that fun stuff. And, everybody had a lifted truck or an old car with straight pipes on it. It was a very, very small hick town kind of vibes, right? So that was
Yeah,
that.
you seem pretty proud of that, like, and gratefully so, man. Sounds like you're smiling, fond memories of this time.
Yes, yes. So that's the thing. Like I said, most of my town moves away when they get older, right? So I have friends kind of scattered all around Canada, and the only time we do get back is basically Christmas, and that's when we could go back to that same ice and we rent it again. All the guys get together for the first time that year, and they all talk about what they did and what they didn't do. So as I'm thinking about this, I realize it is getting closer to Christmas as well. So that
Book
will
your
be happening in
flights.
the next. Yeah, exactly. So no, that'll be happening sooner than later.
So when you were baby Keaton, or sorry, baby Kendall, coming up, what did you think you wanted to be when you grew up? You said you weren't really into the machinery that much, just it was there. What was the dream?
Exactly. Yeah. So I was always a really good student at school. Like I said, high 90s and everything, but just never really was into the studying aspect. I have a pretty good. Somebody tells me something, I'm going to remember that, and not really into the reading of books and all that fun stuff. So growing up, I really thought sciences. I had applied to sciences in grade 11, or sorry, grade 12. Got accepted. I was looking into like a pharmacy route. I was kind of thinking like something along that angle. But I also
Yeah.
had fallback plans where my last year of school, I had a couple like bird courses per se, where it was just shop, and it was the first time I'd really touched a welder and touched all that kind of stuff. So I applied to welding, I applied to pipe fitting and instrumentation, and I said, whatever. It's nice to have choices,
Hmm.
right? So yeah, no, went into that shop class, and we were just working on cars, literally cleaning cars, maybe cutting an exhaust off here and there. We didn't know anything from anything, just kind of doing repair work and stuff. And one day, the teacher, we had a guest in. He was like a welder, I guess, pipe welder out west. And he kind of brought up a couple facts. And one of the things that he brought up was underwater welding. And in my head, I was like, oh, what's that? Like, I've never even heard of that before. It doesn't seem real. Like, what is that? It seems very unsustainable. So I looked into it a little bit more in my last year of high school, and I was like, oh, look, that's a real job. Wow, that's pretty wild. But my route that I wanted to take was I wanted to be a welder first. I wanted to get a red seal, and I knew that at least then, with a fallback plan, at least I have my red seal. Like, that doesn't expire. If this big dream of going underwater and doing this kind of stuff that, like, at the time, like I said, seems so unobtainable. At least the worst that could possibly happen is I have a red seal now. I can go on and do something else if this doesn't come to fruition later on in my life. So yeah, that was the path. I went from wanting to do the 4-year university. I seen all my buddies go off and do that, and I was gone to Alberta pretty much first thing with with the welding after taking a 9-month course in Miramichi. So it it's a pretty big turn from what I thought was going to happen, but it's gone really well so far, and I'm really happy now that it is the way that it happened, right? Because like I said, if you had asked me even a couple of weeks leading up to graduation, I wouldn't have told you welder in the least, right? I was still pretty dead set until the last minute, so it's been a ride.
So the 9-month course you took in your local area, what was that like? What did you learn? How did that lay out?
Yeah. So it was at the local NBCC, New Brunswick Community College. It was in Miramichi, which is really nice. I got to save the money by living at home. It was probably about 20 minutes into town was kind of where the school was, and me and two of my friends from high school were actually taking the course at the same time. So I only drove every third day. We carpooled every day, which is great when it's snowing and all that fun stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, full 9 months. I looked into a couple other ones, like different type of schools you can do it, 4 months, 3 months, all that kind of stuff. But I said if I'm going to do this, I want to do it right. I want to get the full experience. I don't want to be rushed through anything, right? Like I said, I struck an arc maybe 40 times in my life leading up to this.
Mhm.
So I didn't know the difference between TIG, MIG, stick, all that kind of stuff. I just thought, oh, you're a welder, that you just put two pieces of metal into one bigger piece. You're like, oh, they did it, kind of thing, right? So went in, basically, they start right from the basics. They teach you everything. A lot of theory goes on. Thought I was going to be in the shop every day. That's not the case. You go in, it's books. They get you in the shop. You start oxyacetylene. You kind of work your way up. And it was really nice because they allowed you to work at your own pace. It wasn't the old module system that some people would have gone through, maybe yourself included, where you just had to do the modules and continue. We did it in spaces like the entire class is doing, an F3, F4 plate today. The next day they're doing whatever kind of thing. But if you progressed quicker than the rest of the class, they would allow you to jump on to the next thing. But then whenever we had to go teach the new thing, you had to go back, listen to the theory, and then continue on. So yeah, we did that. A couple of weeks in there was we switched with the millwrights, so they came and learned how to weld. We went over, learned how to do a little bit about the tools, how to sharpen drill bits, all that kind of stuff. So it was a very in-depth deep dive, and it allowed us to come out. Like I came out of there with my 4-position flux core, 4-position stick, and a F3, F4 approved pipe ticket, which was really nice. At the end, a couple guys got plate tickets, the F3, F4 plate, and then 3 of us got the approved pipe, which basically, I don't know how familiar you are with the ticket. Obviously, with you being an instructor, you probably are, but it would be, you would get that, and then you would have to weld pipe for a year, and then you could go requalify the exact same test, which is your 6G pipe again, F3, F4, and that would give you your qualified in New Brunswick, which is kind of the equivalent to an Alberta B pressure, but they don't recognize it the same. So I would still have to go to Alberta and get a B pressure after if I wanted it. So no, like I said, learned so much there, right? Like way more than you think you're gonna learn, and it's just like, oh, it's just welding, put two pieces of metal together. You hear about the dumb welders and a monkey can do it, and then you sit down and realize how much theory goes into this stuff and metallurgy and all that fun stuff, and you're like, oh, there's a lot to it here, right? So it was a great experience, though. I'm so happy that I took that 9-month course at NBCC.
Yeah, it's a wide spectrum, the welding, I guess education, and it's just as far as people want to take it, right? People are like, oh, you can just be a dumb welder and pull the trigger, and they're not wrong. You can be that welder, and I'm not even saying that shady, because we need those welders too. Like, I mean, we need people to weld things in our midst that just require us to just pull triggers, and 100%, we need you, we love you, do an awesome job. But if you want to go deep, there's lots and lots if you want to get deep into it. Like, I mean, I went deep, and I learned things every day, man. Like, still, like 30 years later, it's just like constantly like, wow, there's new stuff, and plus every day there's new stuff being invented. You're like, I just never keep up.
That's the thing. Just when you think you're like kind of getting grasp of something, you're like, oh, this is great, I got this, and they're like, oh, actually, we have 2 new pieces that do way different things now, but it's like the same process, but everything is different now. You're like, what? For the first time I heard about like square wave technology on like on the TIG machine, like AC but in square. I'm like, okay, wait, what? Like, let me figure this out now. Like, I was just getting the grasp on the normal wave. What's happening?
Yeah.
So no, it's awesome though.
So was John Fisher at NBCC?
So John Fisher was actually at NBCC Moncton. So when I went back to do my second,
Right.
third, and the Red Seal, he was one of my teachers for that. So
He's a cool guy.
He's a great guy, yeah. So I had heard his name lots before, him and Louis LeBlanc as well, who I think Louis is in with the CWB through the Moncton chapter.
Mm-hmm.
They were both there, and like I said, I'd heard the names lots, and when I finally got to meet them, I definitely didn't disappoint. Those guys have a lot of knowledge.
They're cool guys, and they're fun over a pint too. They're really fun crew.
Yeah, we went out for a couple beer there the last couple of weeks when I was there, especially for the Red Seal, right? They're, pretty much they knew who had passed and who didn't, and if you weren't the guy that had to go study, usually we're going on Fridays for a couple beers, so it was good.
All right, so you finished your 9-month course, this, and then in Saskatchewan we have one that's very similar, and I think it's probably one of the better ways for students to get into welding if you know nothing, because like you said, it's more about becoming a all-rounded tradesperson. It's not so much just like, hey, here's how to weld A to B. There's like, how to use the drill, the press, the shear, how to use the equipment, the tools, how to maintenance the tools and the equipment, which is huge, man. Like, I mean, like it's okay, yeah, great, I can run a drill, but what happens when that drill bit goes dull? And what, are you gonna go buy a new one and people look at you like you're a moron? No, just go sharpen the damn thing, like.
Exactly. No, and you don't realize how far that goes. Like even just there's jobs I've been on where you go and grab it and go to sharpen it. And some guys are like, "What are you doing?" You're like, "I'm going to go sharpen this drill." They're like, "No, we just throw those out. Like we don't know how to do that." It's like, well, obviously that person is great at what they do, but they didn't go through a trade school to get to where they're at. They they did whatever they did to get in that position, but it was never taught to them or never stuck with them or whatever, right? So even little things like what you just discussed, that will get you that next step in what you're doing to kind of be that guy that they rely on to. You're not the guy pulling the trigger all day. You're the guy that when something breaks, you're the guy that goes to fix it, right? So that stuff all it looks good on a resume, and it kind of makes you person that's going to be their guy, right? Which is always the ideal situation.
Yeah, you bet, man. And so you're in your course for the 9 months. During this 9-month journey, did you have in your mind underwater welding still? Like you're like, when I'm done this, that's the next step? Or like, I mean, you still got 3 years of school left, or I shouldn't say school, but 3 more, cycles to go through, whether you're doing A, B, C, and BC, or 1, 2, 3s, or no matter where you are in Canada, they have different names, but at the end of the day, it's still 3. So
for sure.
Were you like, when I'm done that, I'm gonna do this, or what's the plan?
So the underwater, like I said, it was my plan in high school. Took the welding course. My whole plan was to get the red seal and then do it. But I'm not gonna lie, there was a lot of parts of my life where I wouldn't think about it for 4, 5, 6 months in a row, and then it would kind of come back to me like, oh, underwater, that's what I want to do, right? So it was an ongoing thing. But you're the same as any other welder. You get out, you start making a bit of money, and you're like, oh, like what's Alberta like? Okay, should I go there? Oh, should I be a pipe welder? Should I go there? Like, what do I want to do, right? So I got out, went to work. So the day I graduated, I had graduation until like 3 p.m. and then I went to work that night at 7 p.m. Worked a night shift with one company, and then the next day, actually, I got a call to another company who was my first choice. So I worked one shift with this company, left them. The next day, went to a new company, worked the day shift there. So I worked almost like 18 hours, kind of thing, but like night into the day. But you're 18 years old, 19 years old at the time. You can do that stuff. It doesn't even phase you, right? So no, rip that. Worked in New Brunswick for 4 months, and then got my first call out west. Just like I said, the town I'm from, everybody works away. So when they found out that the kid that lived on the farm got a welding ticket, they're like, oh, you want to come out here and kind of see what we're doing? So got my call out there and basically didn't look back. Kind of jumped all around Canada, moved around quite often. I've worked in every province now except for Quebec and the territories, which I'm very okay with not going any more north than where I'm at now. I am not the biggest fan of the cold, and I don't know why I live in Canada still, but it's one of those things. But yeah, no, and then like I said, I get my red seal after a couple of years. So I got my red seal when I was 22, so 2017, got that. Did at the time I was actually fabricating more than welding. I was working for a rock crushing company. And there was me and one other guy, and he had 2 welding trucks at the time. He was a contractor. So I ran his other welding truck for him. So I was on the road all the time with that. We were going up. It was a situation where they send you out and say, hey, something broke. You don't know what broke. You don't know how big. You don't know how small. You go out there with your tools you have in your truck. You show up. It's a 5.5 hour drive into the woods somewhere, and you get there, and there's I don't know, like a 988 loader there with the bucket literally snapped in half, and you're like, okay, like I guess I just gotta fix this now in the middle of the woods. Nobody else is around, right? So it makes you very, very just you start to learn how to use stuff that isn't tools as tools. You start to learn how to run all the machinery again, because you gotta cut the bucket in a certain degree and then like actually back up and bend itself back down using its own hydraulics to like get everything to work. So it teaches you a lot of how to do with little kind of thing. So it definitely makes you a better tradesman as well, which I like the fabrication side more than I like the actual sit down and blaze all day. Like I like building things. So that was definitely a game plan. Once I got into it, I realized, the fabrication side is something kind of draws me in.
Well, that's very much the same path I took. I got into the field repair work, and I love that when you said, making something that's a tool or not a tool, and learning to build your own tools where you
Yes,
just go out with you take like a 12 by 12 piece of 3/4 inch plate and you just throw in the back of the truck because you know that can turn into like 7 different tools, right? Like you can do whatever you want with it.
exactly. You're like, oh, there's my 12 wrenches I'm gonna need later.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's it,
Or
right?
nothing like a couple lifting eyes and a come along. You can do anything, man.
Oh my God, yeah. Like I said, the going from a shop welding, which is what I did for the first couple months, to the field welding, which is what I did pretty much the rest of my welding career. You start to get pretty good at that kind of stuff, like you said, right? Just a couple lifting eyes, and they'll come along and get you pretty far in life.
Yeah, and some people are built for it, and like some people don't have the vision to see the repair. Like it's kind of an art form to see the repair properly and see how it comes back together when sometimes it's just a mess, right? Or like I mean, sometimes it's the theory that gets your ass out of a bind. Like if you got a pin that's sheared off inside of a bucket that's half 6 feet in the ground and it got broken off and you got to get this pin out of there. The only way to get that thing out is to heat out the center, and have its own metallurgy shrink it back so you can slide it out because you'll never pound that out in a million years, like.
No, no. And you see the people try. You see people swinging hammers for a long freaking time before you come over with your gouger and your like oxyacetylene and stuff. Like, hey, bud, step back for a sec. Look, watch this. But
Yeah.
I was, when I was 22, 21 years old, I was that guy with a sledgehammer, right? So I didn't learn this stuff overnight either.
Yeah,
School
it
of
takes
hard knocks,
time.
right? You
Yeah.
get the old lad to show up with the oxyacetylene. You're like, kid, just stand back for a sec. And then it's nice to go do that to other people.
All right, well, it's a great time to take a break before we get into I guess, the advancement of your career, because I want to hear kind of where you went with the fab, because my first Red Seal was welding and my second Red Seal was fab too, because that's totally where my path went. But I know you went and did some other wild stuff. So make sure you guys stay tuned here. We got Kendal with us on the CWB Association podcast, and we'll be back right after these messages. All right, and we're back here on the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron. Thanks for tuning in. Today we got Kendal Keating talking to us about his journey. And he grew up in New Brunswick, and he went to school there, and then he jumped on a plane, went out west. Sounded like he landed somewhere in Alberta. Sounds like fairly kind of northern Alberta. And I got a question. When you were out there working, you said you went back for your level 2 and your level 3 back to New Brunswick. Why didn't you finish your schooling out in Alberta? Why did you go back? Is that difficult to do just for people that are thinking about province hopping?
No, no, exactly. So my big thing was when I did leave for Alberta, like I said, I landed there. I got on with a company at the time was called North Star Energy. They've been bought out after that. They now part of Ballard Construction. They do a lot of transmission lines, which is what I was doing at the time, a lot of pile driving, a lot of splicing piles, all that kind of fun stuff, a lot of bridge building. That was basically my bread and butter for a long time, was putting piles in the ground. So when I got on with that company, their next big job after a couple months I was living in Edmonton, but working in Grand Prairie a lot, also Fort McMurray, kind of bounced around Calgary, everywhere. They got a big job in Labrador, Northern Labrador. So then I went to Labrador, and then I was bouncing around there. I was jumping all over the place, went down to Newfoundland with them, and then they got another job in Manitoba, so I was back to Manitoba. So my big thing was I'm never in New Brunswick anymore. I'm still, I'm 20 years old at the time, and I haven't seen my friends in 4 months. It'd be really cool to go back to school for 2 months in New Brunswick and see all my friends. So that was my big thing at the time. It would have been so New Brunswick used to have the apprenticeship program that said if you went to another province and got your hours there, you can't, though we won't accept those hours in New Brunswick. If you're going to be a New Brunswick journeyman, you're going to get your hours here. Once you get your Red Seal, obviously you can travel. But because obviously New Brunswick is a smaller province, there's not much like industrial stuff going on. Everybody was taking off anyway, starting their apprenticeships in Edmonton or Calgary or Regina, somewhere that there was a little bit more money, right? So they ended up losing so many tradesmen that they said, you know what, you can go somewhere else, get your hours, and we're going to accept those here now. So it was a way that we kept, a lot more apprenticeships through New Brunswick, even though we were allowed to try to travel and work. But it was a piece of cake. My apprenticeship program, or my apprenticeship officer, sorry, she was very good with it. Like I said, I never missed any hours. I was hammering out, 28, 48, 68 days in a row. I'd come back, they'd sign off all my hours. Everything was great. I had great journeymen my entire experience that would, sign off my hours too. They'd show, what I did, what I didn't do. Kendall, work on this. Kendall, you don't have to work on that. So it was honestly a breeze. They made it very easy for me as a kid that didn't really know anything about anything. it was, it was pretty quick. As soon as I was ready for school, they had me signed up and I was back again. So it was definitely ideal situation for me.
And you wrote your IP in New Brunswick as well?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so in New Brunswick, you can do your second, third, and IP in Moncton if you're English, or Bathurst if you're French. And I'm only English, so that's why I ended up going back to Moncton. So I couldn't do it in my hometown of Miramichi, where I did my pre-apprenticeship or my block one kind of thing. But Moncton's an hour and a half away, and like I said, at the time, a lot of my friends had moved to that area anyway, so it worked out great for me. But like I said, more of a social thing for me at the time, whereas it wasn't too big of a game plan.
Yeah, and Moncton's a super fun town. Like, it really is.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So now you're carrying that red seal, which actually I put a picture of mine up on Instagram today because I got all nostalgic. I got all nostalgic. I was like, oh, my tickets, and you go back out west now. Now, as a journey person, are you looking at the game a little differently now? Now you're looking at it like, what's next on my list, or where do I want to go? Or were you just going to buckle down and just start hammering out some hours? Like, what was the plan then?
So, like I said, my getting to my red seal, I hammered out so many hours. There was months that went by, and I'd be like, oh, like I wonder what we do in February, and they're like, Kendal, like it's January, or like it's March now. Like you missed February. I'm like, oh my god, like what happened? I don't even remember that month. Like like that kind of thing. So once I got my red seal, I was like, okay, like I made it. This is the show. I'm that guy. Let's go, kind of thing. But I ended up going back to the same job I was at. I was making a bit more money an hour. I was running that same truck for the same rock crushing plant. I was making great money. No complaints at that point, but I felt very like, okay, like now what? I felt like I hit a ceiling, and I was almost like, oh my god, like I'm 22 years old, and like this is the top of welding, like what, like kind of thing. So yeah, it was kind of sad for a bit actually. I had a couple months where I'm like, what am I doing? Like what just happened? The last 3 years just flew by, and here I am now. So. And then that light bulb went off again. I said, "Oh, underwater. What was that all about? Remember, I used to want to do that. Like, what happened there?" So I started looking into it a lot more, actually. Basically every night I would work my 12-hour shift. I'd get home and I'd research for 5-6 hours. I'd be calling around. I'd be Instagram DMing every single person that had ever touched scuba gear before. I think they might have got a DM from me through the year of 2018, because I was literally hitting up everyone, like, how do you get into this? What do you do? What do I need to do? Blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. I was getting maybe 1 out of every 100 messages I sent was getting back to me. And I started to piece together the puzzle. I realized that, if I want to go to diving school, what I want to do as a Canadian, because I obviously want to work in Canada, I want to go somewhere that trains in dark water, because if I go to, say, Florida, for instance, and do my training as a commercial diver, they're going to train me in the clearest water imaginable. It's going to be warm. I'm going to be in a wetsuit. I'm going to train down there. Everything's going to be great. I'm going to have a great time for 9 months while I'm in school. I'm going to come back to Canada, and it's going to suck, because not only am I not used to the cold water, I'm not used to the dark water. So one of the big things that a lot of people don't really see is, you see the pictures on our Instagram and stuff, and it looks so cool, but we take those pictures when the water allows us to. A lot of our jobs, it's, there's been a couple
Pitch
times
black.
Exactly. I have to blink to know if my eyes are open or closed, because I haven't seen stuff for so long. It's been 2 hours. I'm like, okay, no, my eyes were open, kind of thing, right? So that, like I said, a lot of research went into it. I found out about Holland College in PEI, Canada. Again, I was living in Edmonton at the time whenever this all went down. I applied to Holland College. Within like 2 weeks, they accepted me, and it was for the following year. So I gave my company a heads up, like, hey, boys, like, in 9 months, I'm gone. I'm going to go do underwater welding. I'm going to go do something I always wanted to do. And that's the thing too. I keep saying underwater welding, but realistically, it's commercial diving. And one of the jobs that we do is underwater welding. So like I said, that was always, I wanted to be an underwater welder. And then I found out, oh, that's not even a real job title.
A thing, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the jobs that we do as commercial divers. So yeah, you had to go. One of the big things for them is you want to have 20 dives or 10 hours of underwater time, or both, basically. So I had to go get a PADI certified open water ticket, do a couple scuba dives, which is something I never did either. So I was like, oh yeah, that's probably a good spot to start too, see if I even like the water, right? So did that in the lake system out in Alberta, and then did a couple dives up in like Jasper, Banff area, and like those kind of lakes and stuff too. So that was a really cool experience. I'd love to get back out there and do a couple more rec dives to them, but yeah, just need that. One of the things I didn't realize, I was like, okay, like I'm a red seal now, I can go do it. you don't even need any welding experience to go become a commercial diver, which is kind of news to me when I started looking into it. I thought I needed a red seal, which is kind of the way that I went about it. But I could, like any Joe Low off the street, if they have 20 dives and they're passionate about a trade, they can go take commercial diving and just become an underwater welder, an underwater pipe fitter, underwater machinist, anything that we do underwater. Like we do it all, right? So like a jack of all trades. You can start to specialize in one thing or another as you progress your commercial diving career, but you start off doing it all, right? So it gives you a little bit skim of everything, which is nice too. It kind of keeps you guessing, makes your day to day a little bit more interesting.
I had it. So my boss at SAS Polytech was a commercial diver welder, Doug Booz, and I didn't know anything about the trade, or honestly, as a welder for my whole life, I never even ran into one ever who was like, yeah, I go, I commercial dive and I weld. It's like, that just wasn't a thing. You hear about it and there's like these, like images, but there's not a lot of people that actually do it, right? And you got to kind of be somewhere where they're doing it, where there's like, I guess construction or maintenance required near water, which generally people try to design things to not live in water because it's hard to design and maintenance, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
It's not it's not the ideal situation to be building construction in general, like you said. So no, they tend to stay away from it.
yeah, so he explained it to me just like how you did. Is like, okay, like let's look at the iron workers. You can be an iron worker, but an iron worker is a title. And in the iron workers, you can be a fastener, you can be an erector, you can be a welder, you can be all these different jobs within an iron worker. You can be an iron worker and never touch a welding rod in your entire life. Everyone thinks that iron workers are welders, and it's actually a vast minority of the iron workers are welders. In the pipe fitters and the millwrights and the boiler makers, there's different roles. And he explained it to me like that. Commercial diving is like an umbrella. You become a commercial diver, but then under commercial diving, you can do whatever you want, and you could pursue whatever trade or whatever function you want. Like there's commercial divers that are just laborers, and all they do is clean up and haul things around. And it's like, it's just whether you want to work underwater or not.
Exactly. That's the and like you said, we need them all, right? We need the guy that's going to go down there all day, every day, and just swing a hammer. That's a guy that we need. But then we also need the guys that are going to go down and specialize in weld inspection, like a CSWIP certification, which is something that's actually based through like European kind of standards. CSWIP, that would be kind of the similar as getting like a CWI, like a Canadian welding or certified welding inspector here in Canada, but done underwater. It's a guy that goes down, he can give you UT or UV readings on how thicknesses of pipelines, all that kind of stuff. But then, like I said, you go back and there's one guy down there that all day, every day, all he does is drill holes. So it's such a wide spectrum of what we do that's the part that I love, because like I said, when I hit that ceiling, what I thought was a ceiling with welding, getting that red seal, I don't even know where the ceiling is for commercial diving. Like there's not one thing that I can get. I'm like, oh, I made it. Like it's just because like the next day you can do something completely different. So there's no ceiling in sight, which I really find exciting with this career, where it's like, every day is an exciting new challenge. It's like a mystery. You never know what's going to happen when you're down there, right? Even if you do the same job, like this whole summer, I've worked on pretty much the same hydro dam the entire summer. I'm actually located in Ontario right now. I'm in a spot called North Bay, Ontario. I'm working in Mattawa, and we're just working on a hydro dam, and it's one big job. We're basically putting new steel on the old concrete that's there. It's all degrading, putting steel on and basically pouring new concrete into the steel. So we're basically making like an armor. And, one day I'm doing the exact same job as the day before, but because now the tides have shifted, there's more flow coming through one way. Your welding is going completely different because now the tides have changed a little bit. Yesterday there was no fish. Today there's a school of fish. Like there's so many like variables that are changing at all times that every day seems like a completely new job, which I love. Like I said, it makes it a little bit easier to get up in the morning when you go into work, like, oh, what's going to happen now, right? So, and it's never a bad thing. It's like I explained that to especially my mom. My mom was the person I had to explain it to the most. You think of underwater welding, you're like, that's scary. That's it's a very dangerous job. Which, taking nothing away from it, it is very dangerous if you're not being safe and going through actual protocol and actual code. You can you can get hurt or die and very quickly. But I always say to her, I have more of a chance dying on the way into work in a car accident than I do actually at work. And honestly, the safety that goes into commercial diving in general, like before I get in the water every morning, there's so much safety done that I feel more safe what I'm doing now than when I was a surface welder on some of the jobs I've been on before. Just because, it's just complacency, you're just there with the zip cut. What could go wrong? You're just there with torches. What could go wrong? Right? So it's one of those things, like, I honestly feel safer now than I did before, which is pretty crazy to talk about, but that's the real feeling with us.
Well, in Saskatchewan, we have like some of the worst accident numbers in Canada, and if you've worked in Saskatchewan, you know what I'm talking about. We got some pretty rough areas, and I've been around 2 work-related deaths in my career, which is terrible. It's terrible, and that's not 100% complacency both times. And that's exactly what you're talking about. When you get slack, it takes a microsecond of slack at the wrong moment, and that's it, right?
That's it. That's all she wrote.
Now, I got some stupid questions for you about underwater welding. Okay, so these may be some of the stupidest questions you've ever heard, but they just crossed my mind as you were talking. So when you're surface welding, as you called it, because now I'm gonna have to call myself a surface welder. I'll put that on my resume, professional surface welder. So us surface welders, when we're welding, say at night in the dark, the UV light attracts bugs from all over. Like if you've done night shifts out in the field, you know what it's like to have all the bugs flying in from miles around, and they're flying into your helmet and crawling around your face while you're trying to weld, and they're flying right into the weld pool.
Yep.
Does this happen with ocean bugs like shrimps and because bugs are bugs whether they're above the water or in the water? A shrimp is just the ocean grasshopper, right? Like
exactly. So what I can tell you with that is, on surface you notice it a lot more, because not only can I smell them going into my weld puddle, you're getting that big pop. If a moth flies into it, you're literally grinding that moth out because you just absolutely dummied your weld. You're like, oh, that was going really smooth, but now there's a butterfly. Like, what's happening? So that was the big thing that I noticed too, like with underwater welding, because obviously we're wearing the hats that we wear, usually the Kirby Morgan hats. All of our air is fed to us from the surface. So like, I don't smell anything when I'm down there. I don't, that's the part that gets taken away, which is really nice, because I go home every night and I'm not coughing up black boogers anymore or anything, right? So that's great. But what I do notice is it brings fish around a lot more, which is like, I can go down, like I said, if I was, just doing a lot of layout, a lot of measuring and stuff, I won't see a bass, I won't see anything all day. As soon as I go down there and I'm blazing for that, that dive, usually 3 to 4 hours underwater, if I'm blazing that entire dive, there's fish everywhere. They're like coming and checking it out. They're curious and stuff, right? So a lot of the videos that I even post on Instagram, a lot of them have fish in them if I'm welding. And that's not, it's not an everyday occurrence. It's because I'm welding. They're kind of checking out like, oh, what's that like? What's that like, kind of thing, right? That's like, people fish with spotlights illegally. That's kind of the same thing going on. So like I said, I don't notice the bugs, but I definitely notice the fish.
Now, are they blinded by the light? Like if a fish comes and looks at your weld while you're going and you finish the arc, and I don't even know how the helmets work. You have to explain that to us. Are they auto darkening? So like or is there I've seen ones in videos where there's a flip, like you got to flip. I don't know if there's both, but when the arc's off, you look over and there's some like dead ass blind fish just being like, I don't know where I am. Like
yeah, so I mean, I can't speak of the fish, obviously. Some of them might have gotten a little bit closer than others. So we use fixed shades underwater. So you've seen the one with the flip, and it's really weird though, because it doesn't actually cover our full face shield. It's just a rectangle in the middle. Your 2x4 normal welding screen. Like on surface, I usually run a 10, maybe an 11. Underwater, I usually run like an 8 kind of thing. It's not as bright, obviously, through light refraction with the water. Same way as you look at a glass of water and it looks like the straw is bent or moved over, that kind of thing. So UV rays on surface, like if you're in a shop and it's dark out, especially, I'm welding in 1/4, 40 feet away, the guy gets an arc flash, that type of thing. Underwater, when we were in school, they taught us usually 6 to 8 inches is as far as the UV light will travel in a straight direction. So obviously, you get in the wrong way, you can still get hit with it. But with us, even that clear lens that we have to wear, obviously, to keep the water out, that will stop the UV rays as well. Same as wearing like a normal clear safety
CSA,
glass.
yeah.
Exactly, right. Same thing. But yeah, no, we run the fixed shades. That's what we have. A couple of my videos, you'll see that we have like one that kind of straps onto our helmet. So some of them are bolted on, but if we get in the water that day expecting not to weld, sometimes we wear one that isn't bolted, and then you get in there and then all of a sudden you have to weld. So they'll basically toss one down to you, it hooks onto the back, and then pulls around with like a elastic band. That one covers up our entire shield, which is nice because I find the other one's really bright just because I'm used to surface welding. So like I'm used to being absolute darkness looking at a puddle. Underwater, there is no puddle. That's another kind of weird thing. You start to realize you go down there and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna check it out, see how it looks. You strike an arc and it's just bubbles and explosions, and you're like, oh, I have no idea what's going on. So they say like surface weldings, it's probably 80% looking, 20% feel. Underwater, it's about 20% looking, 80% feel. It's all about the hand movement. I thought I was gonna have a little bit of an upper hand on my classmates coming into it, because I was the only red seal in the class. It was like a couple guys had welding experience, but nobody was like a red seal or anything. And I got in there, I struck my first arc, and I was like, nope, I'm absolutely starting from zero again. So no upper hand at all. So the only upper hand I had was basically knowing how to set up a welding machine. That was it. It was starting from scratch, which was something I really liked too, right? I always like a new challenge. Whenever something gets boring, it's kind of cool to mix it up. So that's good. But yeah,
And
no, like I said,
that's awesome advice for anybody that's looking to get into welding, whether it's surface or underwater. What you think you know may not be what you need to know, right?
Exactly,
So like
yeah.
we here's one of my most frustrating type of student as a teacher. I don't care if you've welded before, you didn't weld before, or whatever. But if I have a student come in and they're like, my uncle said that this is how I do it, and then my uncle said, or my brother-in-law said, or my whatever said, and then okay, fine, then do it your way, and it's just terrible. You give them like a little window of a few days before you have to come in and put in the heavy and be like, okay, you know what? Your uncle's wrong. Forget everything you know, and let's just start from scratch. And sometimes you got to do that.
Exactly. And that's the stuff you go into repair that already has 14 layers of weld on it. That was usually the uncle that did it, and now I'm coming in to do it right the first time, right? So I've come across a lot of that in the field as well.
So now for underwater, how do the weld tests work? Do you also have to test underwater for the same weld, or do you test above water then it's transferable? Is there like a transferable world, or are there different classes? Like, walk me through that.
Yeah, exactly. So when we were in school, basically they give us 2 weeks of surface welding. So the guys go in, like I said, some of these guys haven't struck an arc before. They learned the basics. We burn in some 60-13, some 70-18. Basically, that's it. So underwater, we do vertical down, not vertical up. Obviously, because of the water, the way the bubbles go, you can't do a vertical up weld underwater. So everything's vertical down. Rod angles, travel inclinations, way different as well. Like I said, on surface, 5 to 15 degrees is usually what they're taught in schools. Underwater, we're running 30 to 60 degree travel inclinations, which is, pretty aggressive. That was another weird thing. The hand skill is a lot different. And I'd always find myself just from, repetition coming up to that 15 degrees. And then all of a sudden my weld's just flying back at me. It's kind of falling off the plate and all that kind of stuff. So that's something to get used to, as the hand skill as well. But when you're in school, you do 2 weeks underwater as well. And then at the end of school, depending on what course you're taking, usually you can get an actual CWB ticket. It's called a Class B ticket. They're certified for 6 months compared to a normal welding ticket, which is normally about a 2-year expiration date. So the thing with underwater welding is it's kind of weird because it's not as regulated as, like, say, a surface welding, right? So, there's not a lot of us that do it. Everybody's kind of certified through schooling to go do it. If I was going down doing new construction, I would have to have my CWB, or I'd have to have my AWS or something along those lines. You have to have something certified that, this guy actually can weld. But on a lot of the repair work that we do, it's, you can kind of just go do it. But a lot of sites are site specific as well. And usually when you do a test, you do it at the depth of where the work's going to take place. So if I know that I'm working on, say, this Hydra dam I'm on, our depths all year have been 32 feet to about 20 feet. That's kind of that 18-foot section is where we're welding. So if I was going to do a weld test there, I go down to the deepest depth, 32 feet. I do my weld test. They come up, bend test, break test, whatever they want to do. Usually just a break test, see if you have penetration on either side, just to fill a weld, because that's what we're welding underwater, obviously. So yeah, it's very, very site specific, very, very specific to the company as well. Some companies, for instance, my last company, they were pretty well known for their welding on hulls of ships. So they would fly the certified welders down to either Miami or LA. We would get a Class A welding ticket. But unfortunately, when I was there was the heart of the pandemic. So there was no flights going to Miami or LA at the time. So I never got the chance to go down and do that. But like I said, when I come to this site here in Ontario, I certify directly for this site at that depth. Once I pass it, I can blaze all year. Next year, I'm going to come back here. I'm going to go down to that depth again. I'm going to do another recert, and then I'm going to blaze all year again, kind of thing. So it's the same as, you know, if you want to go be a MIG welder at a shop, or you want to be a pipeline welder that does B pressure, there's, you know, certifications right across the board, and it's the same under, and like I said, high alloys, nickel alloys, all that kind of stuff. You know, there's exotic steels that go into hulls of ships, especially when you get into, say, Navy contracts, because, you know, the type of stuff the Navy and the Canadian military uses as far as their alloy steels and a lot of their equipment. So you have to certify to that as well, which again is another more and more steps, right? So again, where's the ceiling, right? It's not seeable at this point. So nope, that's kind of where it is with the testing.
So how many years have you been working now, you know, underwater with this with commercial diving?
Yeah, so mine is kind of weird. So like I said, I took a 9-month course, but I started in 2019. So I've only been doing it now for 2 years as far as school and everything is concerned. But 6 months into my 9-month course, COVID hit. So instead of, you know, sending us all back out, say, yeah, you know, sucks to suck, you know, thanks for coming out. What they allowed us to do was go to work with what's called a restricted surface supply ticket. So basically, I was allowed to go down to 100 feet instead of 165, which is what I'm certified to now. I wasn't allowed to underwater weld, and there was another restriction as well that it's not coming to the top of my head right now. But basically, I go do everything else. You know, you can do hull cleans, you can do propeller polishes, which is like grinding. I can do a U-Weld, which is basically the equivalent of a motor vehicle inspection, but for a large cruise vessel. I can do all that stuff still, which is, you know, a lot of the job as well. So it didn't really put a damper on it. So I worked for 5 months in Halifax, Nova Scotia. That was where I was working. And then went back to school for 3 months, and then graduated like from the entire program. So now I'm a certified underwater welder. I'm a certified, you know, to 165 feet. I can do all that fun stuff. Did that at the end of 2019. And then, yeah, I've been working now, or sorry, the end of 2020 was that one. And then, yeah, so 2020 and 2021, now I've been basically underwater welding. So it's, you know, it seemed like it was just yesterday I kind of got into it, and here it is 2 years, right? So
Yeah,
it's
still
very,
pretty
very
fresh though.
very, very fresh, yeah, which is nice, like I said. And then, like I said, kind of always working on other stuff. And while that pandemic was going on, and I was working in Halifax, it was the first time in my adult life that I was working a 40-hour week instead of, you know, 84, 90, 100 kind of thing. So that's when I actually went and I started studying as well to get my CWB welding inspector. I got my 47.1 and W59 just because I was just studying at night and challenged that as well. So that, you know, allowed me to do a bit more, and it also taught me a lot more about the metallurgy side of things, right? Which is something I've always been like a little bit interested in, but it definitely helps out when you're going down and doing these, you know, a lot of the stuff we're welding on now even is like, you know, wear plate, like AR 500s, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, it takes a little bit more heat to get the right weld and stuff in that with the high carbon percentages. So it you know, takes you to the next step as well. But yeah, like I said, very, very new to the industry, which is good for me, because kind of seeing everything, kind of seeing which way to go and stuff, and we'll see where it takes me.
You know, it's interesting you bring up the inspection. One of the things that I found when I got hired at SAS Poly as an instructor is that I didn't have any weld inspection education. I've always been, so I'm second generation. My dad was a boiler maker and also went to school for metallurgy. So I have a lot of background in metallurgy. I love metallurgy. I loved it, and when I got my red seal, I just aced that part of it. I think it's so cool. And I found it really useful in terms of problem solving. I found that the best problem solvers are people that understand the metallurgy. My boss, Doug, at SAS Poly requires all the instructors to get their level 1, not to go inspect, but just to, because it's such a good course for metallurgy. You pick up so much knowledge in that level 1. It's really great for that. Even if you never, like, I've never gone and worked as an inspector in my life. I have actually zero interest in, I call them being a weld narc. I don't want to be a weld narc at all. I just want, but it is a great education, even if you just want to learn.
That's the thing, yeah. And like I said, I got basically the booklet through CWB, you know, the 8 chapters kind of thing. I spent most of my time, I think it's chapter 4 and chapter 7 is your metallurgy, and chapter 7 is your codes. Obviously the legislation, codes, legal talk, it's that's a lot of time spent studying there. And then the metallurgy, like, not only is it interesting to me, but like I just get into like rabbit holes on YouTube, like that kind of guy. So I'm like, oh, like how is this grain structure affected in this type of aesthetic, you know, stainless steel? And like then all of a sudden I'm like learning about titanium and the stuff we're gonna put onto rocket ships and like all those kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, like what even happened? I don't even know what I'm studying now. So like you said, it's one of those things that I know enough about to know that I really like it, but I know I'm like enough about it to realize I don't know anything about it, which I like that as well, right? There's so much you can learn about the metallurgy side. You can never even kind of put a grasp on it, from my point of view, at least. So that's a fun thing to learn about as well. That's cool that you guys all have to get your level 1 in order to do that too, because my welding instructor, when I did my first 9-month course, he went and got his directly after retiring from the welding instructor course, and I was like, that kind of would have been pretty beneficial to have a teacher that had that while doing the course as well, right? So that's awesome that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, no, I think it actually ups the caliber of the teaching. And like, I mean, they pay for it because it's something that he wants the instructors to have. And I think it's an awesome idea. So to all the instructors in Canada, or even in the US, because you guys can all take CWB courses too. It's a great course to take. You mentioned earlier about how all the welds underwater are fillets. Is there open root welding underwater? Like, do you guys do open root back, like no backing plate? Is there like a 60-10 down with a 70, like an F3, F4 vertical down?
No. So basically underwater. So when we were practicing in school, so you have different types of rods, right? Like obviously on surface. Underwater, we were practicing in school with 60-13s dipped in wax, because basically you need the ceramic coating on there to kind of focus your arc straight ahead as well as your flux and everything. Kind of keeps it there. But the normal rods we use now are called Hydra Welds, which are pretty equivalent to a 70-18 as far as the coating is concerned. But they have like a ceramic outside, but the rods, compared to a normal 70-18, which, a couple, however many cents, 30 cents, 40 cents a rod, these are running you about $3.50 to $5 a rod, depending on where you're getting them, that kind of thing. So we're using those underwater. They don't penetrate. The penetration you're going to get underwater, obviously, like there's no such thing as preheating. I can't preheat that steel unless you do what's called a hyperbaric weld, which basically you build a box around what you're welding, fill that full of air, it pushes out the water, and then you can do, say, an open root and everything. But technically that's a hyperbaric weld because now all the water's been displaced. What I do is wet welding, which there's no such thing as trying to put a root in a wet weld situation would be, I'm not going to say impossible, but take a better man than me to get her done, I think. So it's like I said, a lot of fillet welds go on. I've seen a couple guys through Instagram stuff doing very, very big repairs in hulls of ships, but again, those are right down to, I would say, open root. They might have a backing strip on the inside of the hull. But again, those are done in a hyperbaric environment, which is the way that if anything has to be dialed in, you're going to do it hyperbaric. You're not going to try and wet weld this stuff.
So, it's interesting. I never thought about not being able to preheat, which now you say it, it's like, duh, yeah, obviously. But what about with induction? Using electricity to preheat. Is there underwater induction systems for preheating?
So that's a great question. I haven't seen them personally, but maybe we should edit this part out if it isn't a thing, and we'll patent that before it goes too far.
Yeah, because you know what? Like induction heating is fast, it's easy, and you don't and it's safe. You don't get electrocuted from it. So hey.
There you go. So now the next thing with that, obviously with electricity, is like where's is the diver in the water for that? Do they have to be out? Where's the current flowing, right? So it's
current will always take the most direct path. So if you have it feeding through a coil, it's not likely to leave that coil unless you were to grab it, right? Like water's really not that good at conducting electricity. People seem to think that water is really good at conducting electricity. It's really not. Unless you have it at a perfect saline solution with the right amount of salt, it doesn't conduct electricity worth a crap. Like, or correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, I've had a couple shocks to maybe disagree with that, but it definitely doesn't go to, the extent of, say, like a copper or aluminum, anything like that. I understand exactly where you're coming from, but when you grab that wet welding rod and you get the shock, you're like, oh, I thought that wasn't supposed to happen. So, but no, we're pretty prepared for that underwater. Like we run everything like straight polarity, obviously the reverse of what you would have on surface. So you're getting way more heat to your rod, obviously, which helps for, the water's cooling that rod down as you're welding, right? So if you're doing 125 amps with reverse, you're going through your steel, coming into your rod. What do they say? Usually 70% of your heat goes to your piece, 30% comes to your rod. Where you switch it, now we have 70% in our rod, which normally would glow red and blow up on you on surface. That's how we weld underwater, and it also makes the electricity flow away from the diver, as well as we have to be very cautious of where our ground is and where we're positioned. You never want to have your body between your ground and your stinger, obviously. So yeah, not just a little bit of things that it's pretty second nature once you get it, but it's something you kind of don't think about it as much as when I'm surface. So when you start going underwater, like, okay, no, where's my ground at? What am I doing here? What's going on, right? So it's a little bit different. And then going in underwater welding for 3 or 4 hours, and then jumping up and going to surface, and I have to go weld something in the pit now, but it's surface welding now, and then not like forget to switch the machine. I'm like, oh, why it's so hot? So you get kind of jumbled up, and then you go from that 60-degree angle. Now you're on surface doing it, and you're like, oh, why is my weld blowing away from me? What's happening here? So it's it keeps you guessing, right? So.
So what are the heats like? So let's say you're on surface, you're using a 1/8 3.2 mil,
Yep.
7018, you're running it at 110 to 120 amps. That's kind of your sweet spot.
Yep.
What's the equivalent of that electrode underwater?
Exactly. Yeah. So these Hydra Welds are very, very good at welding in a similar amperage. When I'm doing the bull noses, which is basically the kind of the jet out part on a dam, big rounded area that's basically used for support, we're putting steel on those. It's all vertical down welds. I'm running those around 130, which I know is pretty hot for a vertical, but you got to think that's a vertical down as well. Run around there. When I was in school, we were using the 6013s, and obviously, if I was going to run a 6013 on surface, I'm going to hit that up around 120 amps. If I'm running that underwater, because it's not technically made for the water, I'm losing a lot of heat. I'm running that around 145 to 155 is what I had written down in my my dive log book. Because every time I do a weld, I write down what I welded at, if it went in like shit, did it go in great, what happened that day, right? So I keep notes of everything I do. I'm always that guy with the diary in my pocket kind of thing, right? So it's but yeah, like I said, it depends what rod you're using. But these Hydra Welds, like I said, they're expensive, but yeah, for a good reason. Like they are very, very much the cat's ass for underwater welding.
So how tight are the job sites then with loss? Like, I mean, if you're looking at $3-4 a rod, you're paying way more for a commercial diver to come and work on something than you would a surface, welder. So like, are they still riding your butt? Like, is the foreman still like, you use those rods right down to the numbers, like, how it is about on surface, or are they like, whatever, we're making so much money, do what you got to do?
Exactly. Yeah. So, like I said, nobody's down there with you. You're your own inspector. You're your own guy. Sometimes you have a hat with camera on it, so surface can see what you're doing. But a big thing is too, like, if I stop a rod and I have, say, half it left, like these are 14-inch rods, same as like a surface or whatever. If I stop it and I have half a rod left, am I going to risk the fact that water just shot down into that flux now that my ceramic coating has been, broken in half? Am I going to try and restart a weld there? If I'm into the weld already and it kind of, my arc disignites and I'm kind of sitting there for like, a half second, I'll twist my wrist, keep it going. But if I stop, chip off slag, anything, I'm throwing that rod away kind of thing, right? So yeah. Exactly, yeah. If they're gonna, in order to put a commercial diver legally in the water in Canada, you need a team of 4 people minimum to be on that site. If you're 2 divers in the water, you need 5 people minimum, on so on kind of thing. So, if they're going to complain over a $3 rod when you're paying, 4 or 5 guys to be there and 3 of them aren't really doing anything as per se, but they are there, in case of emergency.
Safety,
Exactly, yeah. So that's what people look into, and they say, well, why are those 3 people standing around? It's like, well, there's a guy at 120 feet right now that as soon as that guy needs to live, these 3 people are jumping into action, and they are super trained to the point where they're going to get that guy out in a safe and timely manner, and he's going to be able to go home to his family. That's why they're standing around right now, kind of thing, right? So it's the optics. They don't really see what all goes into it when you haven't really been in the workplace as well as gone to the schooling to do it. And then you kind of see what is actually taking place, not just the optics from the highway, what it looks like, right? So,
well, and safety, having that man watch is so important. Like having people around. I had a man watch fail me once. My meter was going off, but I couldn't hear it because it was so loud, and I was like, "What the hell? Why am I getting dizzy?" I was up on this like inside of this tank, like under. It was like 100-foot tall tank, and I was at the top, and there was like all the scaffolding up, and I had to climb all the way up there, and my meter was going off, but I couldn't hear because there's like machinery running, and all of a sudden I was like, I'm getting dizzy, and I like started climbing down and almost wiped out, and I got to the bottom, and my man watch person was sleeping.
Oh my God, I would have been livid. I would have been livid.
I probably shouldn't say this, but I kicked. I woke them up swiftly.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, who wouldn't in that situation, right?
I was choked. Like I could have died. Like
is that like
a
carbon?
Oh yeah, it was a carbon monoxide meter. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, that's rough. I haven't been on many live sites, so like I haven't really dealt with like H2S that much. I've got my certification stuff to like deal with it, but I've been lucky enough not to really been in those situations. So no, she's
And that's above ground, man, where you got all the time in the world, man. Like underwater, I'd imagine things get hairy in a hurry if things are gonna go hairy, right?
exactly, yeah. So like that's the thing. Nothing goes wrong, but when things go wrong, they can be very, very sideways, right? So another big misconception with what we do for a living. So you see the pictures, you see that bottle on my back. Everybody thinks I'm breathing out of that bottle, which is like one of the common questions. Like, how long can you stay there? It's like, no, it's actually the umbilical, like that yellow cord that's coming down into my helmet. That's what I'm breathing out of. That's why it's called surface supplied diving. All my air is surface supplied. That bottle on my back is strictly for emergency. They call it EGS, sorry, emergency gas supply. So on my hat, one of the knobs that's located on my left side, that is my emergency gas supply. So as soon as I need it, I can kind of hit it. So if something happens, usually an entanglement, as long as you're not entangled to the point where it's either cutting off your air or your air's been severed, you can kind of chill there all day. I mean, obviously you don't want to be chilling there all day, depending on what depth you're in. Then you're going to get into a surface decompression type of situation. So you're going to either have to certify or get decompressed in the water by staying at different depths for a certain amount of times. Once, if you're down there, you go over your certain time, now you have to do the decompression because your body takes on nitrogen pretty readily when you're in the water. You get the bubbles in your blood. As you rise, all the pressure gets relieved. So those little baby microscopic bubbles are now blowing up as you come to surface, and all of a sudden your blood is cut off to your brain kind of thing, right?
Have a stroke, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, air embolism, all that kind of fun stuff. So that's the biggest scary thing with the diving. So like I said, very, very rarely do we have to jump what's called a standby diver. We do drills for it a lot where they have to be, as soon as I say, okay, we do drills. Okay, Kendal just broke his leg in the water. We need the standby diver. Go ahead and save Kendal. That guy has to be in the water by law in under 3 minutes in Canada. So 3 minutes, that guy's out of his clothes, into his gear, hat on, in the water. 3 minutes, ready to go, right? So that sounds pretty quick in the summer. Usually we can get that done like under a minute. In the winter, it's a little bit more challenging. You're dealing with a little bit heavier gear. You don't want to be going in with, t-shirt and jeans kind of thing. You're going to put a dry suit on. You want woolies underneath that if you're going to be getting there for what is a long time. If I'm trapped at 10 feet, you're going to dress a bit lighter than if I'm trapped at 140 feet. All that kind of fun stuff plays into it, right? But like I said, it's the guy that you see standing around. You're like, how is this guy getting paid right now? That's the guy that knows he can get in the water in under 3 minutes to come save my ass. So that's the guy. That's what you want, right? So
yeah, you want him to be paid.
Exactly. Yeah. Pay him well, please.
So one of the questions I wrote down here as we were talking is, how much work is there in this? Because I've actually maybe I've been an asshole, maybe I've been a jerk, but when people have been like, I want to be a underwater diver, I mean, every class of students I've ever had, there's always that kid. I'm always like, well, I don't know how much work there is in it because I'm just ignorant. I don't know. Is there a lot of work in it?
So I'll tell you right now, when I was in school, I was getting out, like I said, I had my redstone welding. I knew I was good in trades. Like I said, I've always been good in school academically. When I was in dive school, I was tutoring physics. Like I like math a lot. So, there's kids that get out, like I had several job offers to choose between when I got out of school. I know some kids in my class that haven't got a job offer yet, 2 years later kind of thing. So same thing as anything, you're going to get out what you put in. If you're willing to work, there is work for you. I got job offers immediately, went to Halifax, realized the pay scale there is not really up to what I wanted to do. I'm not looking to take such a big jump from what I was doing before to now. I'm kind of back down here. I wasn't making a lot of money. So it's like, there's work there. There's always going to be work, but it's like, not really what I wanted. Ended up lucking out. I actually got into a union out in Ontario. It's a carpenters union, which happens to have divers in it. There's also a union in Vancouver, the 2404 pile drivers. Great union as well. I've heard nothing but great things about them. They have welders, I think welders, operators, and divers as well. And those are the ones that you're going to be making, that's where you're going to make your money in Canada as a commercial diver. I came out here, basically, I worked from June 14th was my start day with this company, and I worked every day until roughly October, like pretty much every day, like take every second weekend off if you want. Like if you want to work every day, you can kind of go wide open with it. And the crew that I'm with has been here for 4 years. They've worked every summer as well as every winter. And they basically give you the option in the winter, hey, if you want to go do something else, like myself, for instance, I can go do welding inspection or welding, whatever I want to do, or I can kind of stick around labor work, which, doesn't really appeal to me, but they'll still pay you well to be here. And then as long as you come back in the summer to do the diving again, you're good. I know there's lots of work in Ontario, but again, it's down in the Toronto area, non-union, and you're not going to be making that money. But a lot of guys go offshore as well, but which you need new sets of certifications as well as like new training and all that kind of fun stuff. But everybody I know in this industry that I've met in the last couple of years that is good at what they do, they're kind of deciding, they're deciding which job to go to. But also, I've met guys that have never got that option to go somewhere, or you ruin your name at one job and you're not getting on the next, because like you said, this is such a small industry, right? Like I know for a fact in Canada, I think there is, well, in America, there's just over 400,000 certified welders, and there's just over 4,000 certified underwater welders, or commercial divers in general. And Canada has just over 100,000 welders, so I'm assuming the number's around 1,000, somewhere like that, as far as commercial diving. So, like I said, word travels fast, right? You're only as good as your last job. You're only as good as your name. So you want to make it a good one. So, like I said, same as anything though. The student that asks you, like, hey, is there work for underwater welders, and you know that maybe he's not going to make it as a surface welder, like, no, there's probably not work as an underwater welder. Keep doing that. So, but like I said, the type of person you are, right? So,
yeah. Now, and this is, like, I mean, I don't want a number, but for the people that ask, obviously you probably get asked all the time, because I've heard people be like, oh yeah, underwater welders make like $1,500 an hour, like these numbers, and it's like, I don't even think astronauts get 1,500 an hour. Like I'm not sure, like, if that's on the same scale or not, because I mean, I don't know. Welders can be anywhere from 20 to 150 an hour, so that's a pretty wide scale. So commercial divers, I'd imagine it's pretty wide scale too.
That's exactly what it is. That's what people ask me all the time too. And like I said, I'll tell you that when I was in Halifax working, I wasn't happy with what I was getting as far as a pay, because I took such a big pay cut, sorry. Definitely a livable wage is what I was making, but my new job, I'm making 5 times what I was making at that last job. So just kind of numbers, for instance, kind of thing. But it's, again, what you're going to get out what you put in. If you want to be, the guy swinging the hammer all day in, I don't know, a lake somewhere in Manitoba, you're not going to make, a substantial living. It's going to be, you're going to get by, but it's not going to be the best. But if you want to go offshore and do what's called saturation diving, which is like sat diving, basically you breathe helium in the compression stage for, 25, 28, 20 days, whatever days in a row. Those guys are making, we work with a couple of them, and they're making a couple grand a day kind of thing, right? So it's, but then, you're sacrificing your life, you're sacrificing your family life, all that kind of stuff. So it's give and take, right? You want to go make $1 million a year, which obviously that's not the number they're making, but do you want to do that, or do you want to have a life? Do you want to have a family kind of thing? So it's, same as anything. You can go be a pipe welder. You can make 200, 300,000 a year, and you're 40 years old, wondering what happened to your life, kind of thing, or maybe you love it the whole time too, right? Teach their own, right? So it's, it's hard to put a number on anything, right?
It is, and I've had that question all the time with kids. They're like, "What's the most money you've ever made?" And it's like, I mean, we've all had crazy days. You'll have like $2,000 days. You'll have a $2,000 day, right? And but then, would you want to work that hard every day? It's exactly. I don't know, man.
Yeah. That's the nice thing about this union, because we do a 40-hour week, Monday through Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday is all double time. So that's your money makers there, right? So
right in the double bubble.
Exactly. No such thing as time and a half here, which is like, oh, maybe I'll go to Ontario. So it worked out great.
Well, so and then, how long do you see yourself doing this? Like in your trade as a commercial diver, do you come across 60-year-olds that are doing it, 70-year-olds, or is this like a young man's game? Like, how does it? What's it look like?
So I would say personally, from my experience, the companies I've worked with, especially now, I'm 26 years old. Everybody at my company is pretty much between 28 and 22. Everybody's young. All our foremans are, all the supervisors are 28, 26, 24, like that kind of thing. There's a couple people just early 40s, but I know that as far as saturation diving goes, over in the North Sea, just off the UK, the average age for a diver over there is 55. So it's same thing. The people that stay in it for a long time usually get into those higher classes, say the saturation diving, obviously, for instance. They'll stay into that. But a lot of people take this, they can go a lot of different directions from it, which is nice. Like I said, right now I'm certified to run a hyperbaric chamber, so I can go work at a hospital with the certification I have and run the actual hyperbaric chamber there. I can go work underground, say a tunneling system. I actually had an interview not too long ago with a boring company, like Elon Musk's company because they're doing the underwater or underground type of tunneling right now. So
Mhm.
a lot of different ways you can go. You don't want to do it forever just because it is a very physically demanding job, right? Like, I come home a lot of days super sore and I really didn't do that much that day. It's just,
Mhm.
jumping into the water and, kind of if you're treading water or swinging a hammer, like you don't realize how much more effort you have to put into swinging something underwater. You're kind of like punch in the pool and you're like, it feels like I'm in a dream. It's like that, but at
Mhm.
work. So it's a thing, but like we have to get a full body physical done every 2 years that says, okay, this person's actually sort of or basically able to go underwater. Their lungs aren't going to explode, their heart's doing great, all their long bones are intact. Like we get X-rays, all that kind of stuff. So as long as you can keep passing that physical, there's no end date. Like you can go as long as you want. So there's going to be there's going to be the unicorn every now and then that's 67 years old still doing it, but in my personal thing, I don't want to do this forever. I'm going to get maybe 5, possibly 10 years out of it, and hopefully at that point my inspection's gone a bit farther, or something. Some of the side gigs I've been doing hopefully might take off by then, right? So it's one of those things. If you want to keep doing it, more power to you. But if you want to get out, there's going to be a lot of doors you can kind of slide through coming out of this industry, which is nice.
Well, and you got your red seal too, so you can always go back and weld and like, would you? Because I know you said you love the fab, and I'm a fab lover. Do you see yourself maybe getting your fab ticket, getting your red seal and fab as well, or is that something I haven't really thought about it?
Yeah, so I haven't really thought about actually going back and doing the test for it, but the guy that I was working for, or running one of his trucks when I was in Alberta, that was his trade. So he had a red seal in steel fab. So he had told me a couple times, hey man, if you want me to sign off your hours, like I'll sign them off. Like I know you can pass the test and everything. So
Hmm.
that would definitely be something that would be maybe beneficial to me in the future. Because like I said, if I'm gonna do some side projects, it would be all building things, right? So
Hmm.
I don't want to be the guy that people send their stuff that I already have tacked together and I go blaze it for them. That's not what I'm looking to do. But no, like if a red seal in steel trade is going to benefit me in the long run, that would definitely be something I'd be open to. But like I said, at this point, I have so many other things going on in my life from the day to day that it hasn't really crossed my mind that much yet.
All right. Well, we're coming up an hour and 15, so we're getting long in the tooth for the podcast. It's
For
been
sure.
super fun. It's been super fun talking to you. And you know what? This is, I think, going to be super informational for a lot of people that ask these questions. They're always like, "Well, how does this work? What do you do?" So let's end the show on that note. Like what would be some of the I guess tasks if you're a young person and you're looking to get into commercial diving to possibly be a welder or just get into commercial diving in general? If what would be some of the first steps they would need to do to kind of go down that path?
So the first thing I would tell you to do is get in shape. You don't need to be in military shape. You don't have to be running 5Ks in the morning every morning. However, when you go to school, you will have to do a 5K in under 25 minutes in order to pass the program, something that we had to do. Basically, when you go to the actual physiological side of what happens to your body when it goes into a pressure, like I said, that nitrogen thing. So fat will take on nitrogen a lot more readily and off gas a lot slowly than muscle will. So if you put yourself in good physical condition, you're going to be that next hand up, not only to do well in school, but to actually be a lot safer while you're doing it. You're not going to have as much risk of getting bent, which if you don't know what the bends are, go Google it. It's basically the worst thing you can do underwater besides getting sucked through a dam.
Hmm.
And it's just, that's the first thing. Second thing is obviously before you go and spend $35,000 on going to a 9-month underwater or commercial diving school, you're going to want to know that you're not going to panic underwater. Definitely, a lot of schools recommend or even mandate that you have 20 dives or 10 hours underwater. So go get your scuba ticket. Go see if you like scuba diving. Don't just look at money signs and jump into something that you don't realize if you're gonna like or gonna hate or whatever. So go get your scuba, see if you like it. If you go do it down south and you love it, make sure you get a couple lake dives in too to see if you can deal with the cold. But after that, it's just you know a little bit of trade knowledge goes a long way because you see it. Like it's very easy to get into commercial diving and just be a diver. But if you know how to read a tape, if you know how to look at pitting and say, okay, this is wrong, this is right, that kind of stuff. How to use different power tools. That's going to help you a lot too, right? So a little bit of trade knowledge goes a long way. So my three main things right there. You have a little bit of knowledge in each of those, and you'll do very well in the course. And even if you don't want to take it, those three things will take you a little bit further in life anyway. And scuba diving is always fun, so get in there and do some.
Yeah, and I know that pretty much every major city in Canada has a scuba diving school of some kind where you can go to learn how to do it. And I've never done it because I got fear of deep water. So, I'll jump out of an airplane before I jump in the water. So,
Oh, there you go. Go jump in an airplane, land in the water, see what happens.
it's funny because I've been on some real sketchy heights and it doesn't bother me at all. I'm not scared of heights at all. But I get like 20, 30 feet deep. Like I got a boat. I won't
Yeah.
jump out of my own boat in the middle of the lake. Like it just
Really?
freaks me out. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I it's never even crossed my mind to be a scuba diver. It's like, oh
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
see, I would
Well,
not be cut out for it.
yeah, exactly. That's right. It's different. I'll tell you right now, like when I go down, if I'm in the ocean working on something, I work on that thing and I look at that thing until I'm done my dive. I'm not turning around. I don't care what's behind me. I'm just pretending like nothing's there. I'm working on this propeller. That's what I'm looking at, right? There could be 4,000 sharks behind me. No idea. Never turn around. So it's each their own, right?
Yeah, you bet. All right, and then I guess for the last question of the day, you've heard me probably ask this in every podcast. You know what? For someone just young coming up and looking to get into the trades, in general, with your experience now, kind of trying a few different things, what would be actually let's make it more specific. Let's say someone in the East Coast, small town East Coast kid coming up out of high school looking to get into the trades. What would be a piece of advice you'd give to someone like that to try to help them succeed in their trade?
For sure. I'd just be like, my biggest thing when I talk to especially East Coast, because the East Coast, you can either get eaten up and swallowed whole kind of thing. You get stuck in that town. You take your first job and you get married to that company, and all of a sudden, you're 45 years old and you're like, oh, where'd my life go kind of thing. Don't feel like you're married to any company. There's new jobs made every day. If you feel either uncomfortable due to a safety reason or you realize that your potential isn't being kind of match where you're at. They're not letting me do what I want to do. I went and took pipe fitting and they're only letting me do plumbing stuff, that kind of thing. Like, know your worth, know that, the ceiling, you might feel like you hit it early, keep going past it. Once you hit a ceiling, you realize that's just the first step kind of thing, right? It's kind of what I talked about earlier. So just don't feel like you're just kind of boxed in or anything. You really try to excel at it, because if you have any type of a brain behind you and you are a driven person, you can go so far in the trades that it's actually crazy, because a lot of people don't realize that, right? They think of the trades as, a person who barely passed their grade 12, who couldn't get by anywhere else, and that's why they're doing this trade stuff. But it is such a beneficial career choice to get into that I can't even speak enough about it. And you'll hear me on Instagram, you'll see me in a lot of other podcasts, hopefully. And I'm very passionate about the trades in general. So make that step and see how far you can take it. Make it the most beneficial thing you can possibly do in your life, right? So that would definitely be the thing I would tell an East Coast student.
Well, it's great advice in general for everybody, because passion is a big thing. And I guess as a podcaster, pretty much every guest I have on the show because they're passionate, right? And you want to talk about this stuff, but it's easy to get passionate about something that serves you well, right? You go into this trade, and I've 50 some guests now, and everyone came in from a totally different angle. Like no two stories have been the same, but at the end of the day, everyone's like, man, this has turned out so good for me one way or another, right? And like you're under there with the fishies, having your fun and doing this cool stuff, and that's an awesome story. That's an awesome story to share. So I really appreciate you coming on the show, Kendal.
I actually appreciate you having me on. This has been great. I hope to hear from you in the future, and I'll hopefully meet you down at a couple of the trade shows you guys have been going to.
Man. I'm all over the place. I'm sure we'll run into each other. Well, I'll be in Atlanta for the next Fab Tech. So
perfect. Yeah, I already got that one on my calendar, so I'm gonna try and make her down there.
Awesome. And I'll warn you now, though, be careful. I wear people out. So
okay, sounds good. Yeah,
all right, man.
All right, sounds good, Max. You have a good night.
Yeah, all right. And everyone that's been listening to the show, thanks very much for tuning in. Make sure you share, download, and like it to let people know. And if you guys got any ideas for people that you would love to have on the show, or yourself is interested in being on the show, reach out to me. As many people have known, I reply to every DM. So if you guys hit me up, Ask Max75 on Instagram, you guys can find me there, and I'll reply, and I'll see what I can do about getting you on the show as soon as I can. Everyone's got to wait in line, so it is the way it is. But I got a pretty good system, right, Kendall? It wasn't hard getting on here, was it?
It worked perfect. No, it was like a week and a half, and here I am.
Yeah, so it works out pretty good. So I
Very good.
appreciate it, and make sure you guys stay tuned.
We hope you enjoy the show.
You've been listening to the CWB Association Welding Podcast with Max Ceron. If you enjoyed what you heard today, rate our podcast and visit us at cwbassociation.org to learn more. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions or suggestions on what you'd like to learn about in the future. Produced by the CWB Group and presented by Max Ceron. This podcast serves to educate and connect the welding community. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.